15-year-old Kristy Bamu. He was a young boy from his family was from the Congo. And they moved to France. And after they moved to France, they had more kids. Kristy, this 15-year-old boy that we're going to be talking about tonight, was actually born in France. But they all come from the descent, right, of they're all Congolese. He had an older sister, and his older sister's name was Magali Bamu. And on the for the Christmas holiday in 2010, Kristy and some of his younger siblings were going to stay with their sister Magali and her boyfriend, her fiance, her whatever he was to her, Eric Bakubi. Now, I think before we get into what happened, I think we need to give a little backstory, a little bit about not only Magali, but also this Eric character. Because when it comes down to it, Eric was the pretty much the main source of this event that happened. Magali was a quiet, very driven, becoming very successful young lady. She had moved from France with her family. At one point she moved with her aunt and uncle, and then she moved out on her own to London. Now, from what I hear, from what I understand, from what I read today, and building up into this episode, is the time that she spent with her aunt and uncle was not good. They pretty much treated her like she was their slave. She had to do all the cooking, all the cleaning. She wasn't allowed to go to school. In fact, until she moved out on her own. When she moved out on her own is when she finally went and she enrolled herself in some schooling, and she got a job, and she was very driven because of that. And then somewhere in that time, she met Eric Bakube. Now, Eric Bakube was also from Congolese descent, and Eric was very, very, very into and believed in what the Congolese people think of as witchcraft, but it was known as Kambuki. Now, what he thought was that if someone had practiced witchcraft in their life somehow or whatever, that or this Kambuki, that evil spirits would possess them, and they would bring curses onto the family. And so 2010, it's the Christmas holiday season, and Magali's brothers and sisters come to visit her. They're excited, man. Think about it.
Right.
They got this sister the sister, by the way, I don't know what the ages of the other siblings, but Kristy, the young boy, was 15, and she was a decade older than him. So she was, I think, actually 11 or 12 years older than him.
Yeah.
So they were super excited that they got to go spend Christmas with their older sister. They were going to a new place, which was London, and they were going to stay through the holidays with her and with this Eric character. Now, a little bit about Kristy. Kristy was by all accounts, a fantastic young man. His teacher said that he was never in trouble, was a very quiet kid. He loved football. I'm going to say football. Can I say football?
You can.
Which in America is soccer.
Right.
Is what we call it. But he loved that. That was his number one thing. His aspiration was to play soccer, and he was just, by everybody's account, just
a normal teenage kid, right?
15-year-old boy, man. And so, it seems normal, very reasonable that he would be excited to go see his older sister.
Sure.
Was going to stay there for Christmas, and also seems very normal that his parents would bless that, say fine. Now let's talk about the parents a little bit. They were super ride or die for their kids' parents. They loved all their kids. They thought their kids were great. They backed their kids. They wanted their kids to be successful. They were loving parents. And so they had no reason to think that anything would happen. But disaster, or I don't know if I'd call it disaster, but a nightmare struck. when Kristy and his siblings went to stay with Magali and Eric, because there were some little minor issues that Kristy had when he was there. One of them, I think, that kind of kicked everything off. And there's some different versions that I heard of this, but this is the one that seems to make the most sense to me. And I think that what happened was that he had to go to the bathroom, man. He had to take a leak. Yeah. And for some reason the bathroom door was locked, and he would try to get in, and he couldn't. And so he wet his pants. He peed in his pants. And he was embarrassed. He's a 15-year-old boy, and he peed in his pants. Now I'm going to tell you that would be embarrassing for any kid, right? You don't want to do that. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. And so what he did was he hid his underwear under the sink, and this guy Eric found him. And for some reason that sparked in his mind that Kristy, this young 15-year-old boy, had somehow taken part in this however you pronounce it, witchcraft, African witchcraft, and that he was now possessed with spirits, and he was trying to poison their food and their water.